Hey friends, today is day 3 in Mercy Creek, and the New Testament lesson for today comes from Matthew 6, where Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Now, that verse sounds simple until tomorrow feels like it's falling apart. It sounds beautiful until the bills are due, right? The storm is coming, the freezer breaks, the relationship is still fragile, the child needs you, the phone keeps ringing, and you do not know how you are supposed to carry one more thing. Jesus never said life would have no trouble. He said not to let tomorrow steal today. Now, he taught us to look at the birds, to look at the flowers, to remember that the Father sees what we need even before we know how to ask. So today, in Mercy Creek, Jesus teaches that faith is not pretending there is no storm. Faith is learning who is with you when the rain comes down. The morning after Sam Miller came home, Mercy Creek woke under a dark sky. The clouds had rolled in low and heavy, hanging above Main Street like they had something to say. At Miller's garage, Hank stood beneath the old sign that still read Miller Brothers Auto Repair. For years, that sign had made him angry. Now, it made him uncomfortable. Because yesterday his brother Sam had walked back into town, and yesterday Hank had not forgiven him fully. Not yet. But he had not slammed the door either. Sometimes grace begins there. Not with a hug and not with music, not with everything fixed. Sometimes grace begins with a door that stays open 1 inch longer than pride wanted it to. Across town, Grace Bennett opened the diner early. Lily sat in her usual booth with her notebook. She had written one sentence at the top of a fresh page. Day 3. The sky looks worried. Now, Grace looked over her shoulder. That sky is not the only thing. Lily looked up. Are you worried about the diner? Grace forced a little smile. I'm the owner. That's part of the uniform. But Lily knew better. The freezer had been making a bad sound all morning, a deep, uneven hum, then a rattle, then silence. Grace closed her eyes. No, she whispered. She opened the freezer door. Warm air touched her face. That freezer held meat, vegetables, pie crusts, everything she needed to make it through the weekend. And the weekend was how the diner survived. The bell above the door rang. Jesus stepped in. He was not rushed, not surprised, not wet yet, though the rain had just begun outside. Grace looked at him and tried to smile. Morning. Jesus looked at her gently. You are carrying tomorrow already. Grace let out a tired breath. The freezer died. Lily added, and Mom is pretending she is fine. Jesus looked toward the kitchen. May I see it? Grace nodded. A few minutes later, Hank Miller came in from across the street with a toolbox in one hand and a scowl already on his face. I heard the compressor from the sidewalk, he said. Thing sounds like it gave up and wrote a goodbye letter. Grace crossed her arms. Can you fix it? Hank looked at the old freezer. Maybe. That was Hank's favorite answer for everything. It meant yes if things went well. No, if he needed an excuse, and don't ask me again until I'm done. Then the diner door opened again, and Sam Miller stepped in. The whole room seemed to notice before Hank turned around. Sam was younger than Hank by 3 years, but life had put more miles on his face. He stood near the door, rein on his jacket, hands open at his sides. I heard Grace needed help, Sam said. Hank's jaw tightened. I've got it. Sam nodded. I know you do. Nobody moved. Then Sam said, but that old freezer has a cracked relay switch, if it's the same model from before. We fixed one like it in '09. Hank looked at him. For a second, the years between them stood in the room. Then Grace said, I don't care who fixes it as long as it gets fixed. Lily whispered, good answer. Jesus smiled. Hank looked back at the freezer. Fine, he muttered. Hand me the meter. Sam stepped forward, not too fast, and not proud, just close enough to help. Outside, the rain came down harder. By noon, Mercy Creek was under a full storm. Water ran along the curbs. The power flickered at the pharmacy. Deputy Reed drove slowly down Main Street, checking flooded drains. Pastor Caleb came into the diner with Ruth Caldwell, both of them carrying towels from the church basement because water had started leaking under the back door. Nora Reyes arrived after a clinic shift with Mateo, wrapped in a little yellow raincoat. For a while, the diner became less like a business and more like a shelter. People came in wet, cold, tired, and nervous. The storm had knocked out power on the east side of town. The school had closed early. The river was rising. Grace tried to keep everyone fed, but every time the lights blinked, her face tightened. Jesus noticed. He always did. Finally, when thunder shook the windows, Grace snapped. I can't lose this place. The room quieted. She looked embarrassed as soon as she said it, but the words had already come out. I'm sorry, she said. I can't. I have bills. I have payroll. I have Lily. I have a freezer that may or may not survive. I have people counting on me, and I'm so tired of pretending I'm not scared. Nobody rushed to fix that sentence. That was mercy too, letting the truth breathe. Jesus stood near the counter. Grace, he said, look outside. She gave a weak laugh. At the storm? At the birds? Grace looked through the diner window. Under the awning across the street, 3 little sparrows huddled together on the old Miller garage sign. Jesus said, they do not own barns. They do not store enough for every season. And still, your Father sees them. Grace was quiet. Then Jesus nodded toward the small flower box under the diner window. Rain had bent the wildflowers low, but their color still held. And look at the flowers. They do not fight the storm by becoming something else. They receive the rain and keep reaching for the light. Pastor Caleb whispered, Matthew 6. Jesus turned to the room. Worry promises control, but gives none. It spends today's strength on tomorrow's fear. Grace wiped her eyes. So I'm not supposed to care? Jesus shook his head. No, love cares. Fear clutches. That landed in the room because everybody knew exactly what it meant. to clutch. Hank clutched old anger. Sam clutched old regret. Grace clutched responsibility. Nora clutched strength. Deputy Reed clutched control. Pastor Caleb clutched the need to be enough for everybody. Ruth clutched memories because her house was too quiet without them. And little by little, the storm outside began naming the storms inside. From the kitchen, Sam called out, "Hank?" Hank looked up. "What?" Sam held a small part in his hand. "Relays burned." Hank walked over. "You sure?" Sam handed it to him. Hank inspected it. Then he nodded once. "You were right." The whole diner heard it. Sam did not smile too big, and that was wise. Hank looked at Grace. "I have one at the garage." Sam said, "I can run and get it." Hank hesitated. Then he tossed him the keys. The keys landed in Sam's hand, and it was a small thing, but not in that room, not after years of locked doors. Sam ran into the rain. Grace watched him go. Jesus said softly, "Sometimes trust returns like a seed, not a tree." The storm continued, but something in that diner had shifted. People began helping without being asked. Deputy Reed cleared the drain outside the front door. Pastor Caleb and Ruth dried the floor. Nora helped Grace make sandwiches. Lily kept Mateo busy by letting him draw birds in her notebook. Hank worked on the freezer without complaining for almost 15 minutes, which Ruth later said was another miracle. And when Sam returned with the part, soaked from head to toe, Hank took it from him. Then he said, almost too quietly to hear, "Thanks." Sam nodded. "You're welcome." By late afternoon, the freezer coughed, hummed, and came back to life. Grace covered her face with both hands. Lily cheered. Mateo clapped because Lily clapped. Even Hank looked pleased, though he tried to hide it by saying, "It'll hold for now." The rain softened, not stopped, just softened, and Jesus stood by the window. Grace came beside him. "I still have the bills," she said. "Yes." "And the freezer is still old." "Yes." "And tomorrow could still be hard." Jesus looked at her. "Yes." She breathed in slowly. "But I'm here today." Jesus smiled. "And the Father is here today with you." That evening, the clouds broke just enough for light to spill over Mercy Creek. Not bright sunlight, and not a perfect ending. Just a strip of gold across wet pavement. Grace stood outside the diner with Lily beside her. Across the street, Hank and Sam stood under the garage awning. They were not hugging, they were not laughing, but they were standing side by side. And for brothers who had spent years on opposite sides of hurt, that was not nothing. Lily opened her notebook and read what she had written. "Worry makes tomorrow louder than God." Grace looked down at her daughter. "That's good." Lily shrugged. Jesus helped. Inside the diner, Ruth poured coffee for Pastor Caleb. Nora held Mateo while he slept against her shoulder. Deputy Reed wrung rainwater from his hat. And Jesus looked at all of them like a shepherd counting sheep after a storm. So here is the lesson from day 3 in Mercy Creek. Jesus does not shame us for being afraid. He meets us in the fear and teaches us not to let fear become our master. He does not say there will be no rain. He says the Father sees the sparrow. He says the Father clothes the flowers. He says tomorrow is strong enough to steal the grace God has given for today, unless we hand it over. So when the storm comes, do the next faithful thing. Make a sandwich, hold the towel, hand over the keys, receive the help, say the prayer, look at the birds, look at the flowers, and remember this. You may not know what tomorrow holds, but Jesus is already standing with you in today. Tomorrow is day 4, and in Mercy Creek, Sunday morning is coming. Eli Harper is about to walk into church, and the people who learned mercy in a diner and trust in a storm will have to learn whether there is room in the back pew for a boy everybody used to avoid. Because Jesus, well, Jesus is not finished with Mercy Creek yet. My name is Douglas Vandergraph, and I believe in Jesus Christ. God bless every single one of you. Every single one. I'll see you tomorrow for day 4 in Mercy Creek. God bless.